Hey guys, it's Realtor Adele, your favorite realtor and investment property strategist with the Forbes Report. Today we're taking a look at the housing market for the second quarter of 2022. As usual, there's a lot to uncover, so let's jump right in. This year in housing seemed to be all about rising mortgage rates and increased home prices. It seems as though once 2022 rolled in, we went from being somewhat comfortable to rates being just over 3% to okay, what the freak is really going on? Hopefully today's report will shed some light and understanding on just that as I uncover where we've been, where we are currently, and of course, where we're expected to go. There's a lot of talk about a housing crash and a slew of foreclosures on the horizon, and the general consensus of some home buyers is to sit back and wait. If this is your thought process, according to industry experts, you'll be waiting a while. With so much noise in the market, who should you believe? First off, remember that all real estate is local, and there is an easy way to decipher exactly what the housing market or what housing trends are in any area. You do this by taking a look at inventory levels, the days on market, the list price versus the sales price, and there you will have your answer. So take a list of homes and whatever neighborhood you're interested in or whatever neighborhood that the property is in, if you're thinking of selling or whatever your real estate matter is at the time, look at those things and that will give you your answer. Those numbers will let you know if there is a demand for homes in that neighborhood. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is at the end of the day, it really all boils down to supply and demand. So just as with anything, housing is no different. If there is low inventory with a high buyer demand, of course that will result in increased prices. And the same is true if we flip it. So if there is a lot of inventory and low demand for a product or service, naturally there will be price reductions as well. And also keep in mind that, and I think you're all aware of this, that for the past few years we've been in a strong seller's market in most states, and currently some states are experiencing price corrections, and this is not unusual as we navigate post-COVID pricing hikes, as we navigate increased mortgage rates, and of course, economic inflation. As previously mentioned, all real estate is local, so do your own research for the specific market that the property is in. In the greater Atlanta area, we're still in a very strong seller's market, and the average home price appreciation is around 21%. And now that we have that covered, let's talk mortgage rates. Right now we're mid-year, and as you know, mortgage rates have been steadily climbing since January. That is supposed to taper out as we move through 2022. And the following slide will show you rates from the current primary mortgage market. As mortgage rates and home prices rise, how will this affect the market? Now, a lot of people tend to think that when mortgage rates rise, then home prices normally decrease. And the chart you're looking at is historical data that shows what happened in a rising mortgage rate environment along with home price increases, or in an environment where both mortgage rates and home prices are rising at the same time. Now let's focus on the chart to the left, and you will notice that this dates back to October 93, So we're looking at about a 30-year period. And so between October 93 and December 94, over the period of 14 months, if we look at that top line, you will see that mortgage rates increased by 2.38% and home prices increased by 3%. If you go to the next line, the period of January 96 through September 96, an 8-month period, there were where mortgage rates increased by 1.2% and home prices increased by 2%, and so on. But overall, the average over the 30-year period, you will see that the average mortgage rate increase was 1.46%, and home prices increased at an average of 8%. The chart to the right shows us the impact of rise in mortgage rates on housing, again during the same time period. And the first line, October 93 through December 94. During that 14-month period, interest rates increased, mortgage rates increased by 2.38%, home prices increased by 3%, which resulted in a decrease in home sales by 11%. The second line, January 96 through September 96, that 8-month period, there where mortgage rates increased by 1.2%, home prices increased by 2%, there was a decrease in home sales by 2%, and so forth. Now let's jump down to June 05 through July 06, which was that precursor or calm before the storm, right before the market crashed. During that 13-month period, interest rates increased by 1.18%, home prices increased by 7%, and there was a decline in home sales by 14%. Overall, the average, the last line that's highlighted in blue, so the average mortgage rate increase being 1.46%, home prices increased by 8%, which resulted in an average home sales decrease of 5%. So we can see overall that yes, home sales are affected in an environment where you have rising mortgage rates and rising home prices. But overall, historically, this data shows that it doesn't have a huge impact on home sales overall. Let's take a closer look at the final numbers of the same chart to the left during the 14-month period of October 93 through December 94. Now, during that same time period, or during that time period, rates increased by 2.38% to a final rate of 9.2%. Now, let me be clear, that is not what is being projected according to experts for the current market. This is just to give insight on what has happened in the past during a rising rate mortgage environment. The chart to the right is more comparable to what we're experiencing with today's rate increases, which is between 1.5% increase. We can see that home prices increased by 2% during the period January 96 through September 96, and rates increased incrementally just over 1.2%, which resulted in home sales decreasing by 2%. In this scenario, during 98 through the early 2000s, home prices increased by 13% and home sales decreased during both periods by 2%, and so on. Of course, the precourse to the housing crash during 05 through 06, home sales were down by 14%. And overall, we can see that rise in mortgage rates don't have a huge impact on home sales. And this tells us that the amount of inventory plays a direct role on whether home sales are impacted or not during a rising rate environment. Right now, we know that home inventory is still very low, And with consistent buyer demand, this dynamic will continue to drive home price appreciation. So when you see headlines about a softening or slowdown in home sales, it's largely due to a lack of inventory. And we're going to take a closer look at inventory on the following slide. Now, this chart shows us the inventory levels during that time period or during the environment where both interest rates or mortgage rates and home prices were increasing during the same time. And if you look at third, the third row down, so June '03 through '04, a 12-month period, rates rose incrementally around just over 1%, and the final rate for that time period, mortgage rates were 6.29%. Home prices increased by 13%. Home sales increased by 2%. And during the time, there was 5 months of inventory. Then if we look at the other line down, which was right before the housing crash during '05, '06, during the 13-month period, where the final interest rates were just under 7%, so it was 6.76%. Home prices increased by 7%. Home sales were down by 14%, and there was an average of 4.5 months of inventory. And after the crash, or on the tail end of it, after the housing crash, 2012 through 2013, during a 13-month period, rates increased 1.11% with a final rate of 4.46% during that time period. Home prices rose by 11%. Home sales decreased by 2%. And during that period, there was 4.8 months of inventory. For an average, the final interest rates is or was 6.85. Home prices increased by 9%. Home sales decreased by 4%, and there was just under 5 months of inventory. Now, however, it is a different environment. However, I wanted to share this data with you just to give you insight on what happened historically during that dynamic of increased interest rates along with increased home prices, and also wanted to point out the amount of inventory that was available during that time. Now, I know that in most market, inventory levels are below what these are. I know here in the greater Atlanta area, our inventory is less than 1.5 per 1.1.5 months. So we have less than 1.5 months of inventory, and it's been that way for about 2 years now. So definitely, although we are experiencing high interest rates or high mortgage rates and increased home prices, the big difference is the levels of inventory. And inventory drives home prices and home appreciation. So, in a low inventory, high buyer demand environment, home prices will continue to appreciate. Therefore, because of this data, experts are not predicting a housing market crash. Again, all real estate is local, so remember to do your own research in the neighborhood where the property of your interest is located. To summarize, mortgage rates will continue to rise throughout the remainder of 2022, however, not as rapidly as they have been during the first quarter. Most housing reports are generalized and the headlines are designed to shock you or as a shock factor, and it does little to inform you. All real estate is local. Do your own research. Some states are experiencing price corrections. Low inventory and high buyer demand will continue to raise prices. A slowdown in home sales is largely due to a lack of inventory, and this is not a sign of a housing crash. Waiting to buy a home will cost you more since home prices are expected to appreciate through 2026. Current housing inventory in the Greater Atlanta area is around 1 month or less, and home price appreciation in the Greater Atlanta area is the average is just over 20%. As always, it is my goal to provide insight on what's really going on in the housing market so that you can make the best decision for yourself and your families. The information that I share with you is sourced from industry experts, and a full copy of the report is available at your request. Also, if you would like a housing report on your neighborhood, please don't hesitate to contact me. All of my information is provided within the slides of this video. That's all for now. Until next time, take good care.